Well, erstwhile Jets quarterback, or I should say recovering Jets quarterback, Aaron Rodgers, may be physically injured, but he seems mentally pretty sharp. During his weekly appearance on the Great Pat McAfee show on ESPN, Aaron Rodgers called Travis Kelce, quote, Mr. Pfizer. Take a watch.
Didn't have a crazy game, and Mr. Pfizer, we kind of shut him down a little bit. He didn't have his like crazy impact game. Obviously, he had some yards and stuff, but I felt like for the most part, we played really tough on defense, especially the last three quarters.
All right, Ryan. So Jets lose to the Chiefs. Rodgers calls Travis Kelce on ESPN, which cannot have been happy with that. Mr. Pfizer, because Travis Kelce, I think, has done ads. He's actually partnered with Pfizer. This is actually from Fox News. Quote, Kelce recently partnered with the pharmaceutical giant to promote its COVID-19 and flu vaccines in commercials. Rodgers had a conversation with Travis Kelce after the game. He said he's going to leave it private, but he said, quote, I've known Travis Kelce for a long time, and we had a great chat. Got to have a quick chat with Mahomes about how every time we're supposed to play each other, it doesn't happen. A.J. Hawk was his former player, his former teammate, A.J. Hawk, when they were at the great Green Bay Packers, was on air as well. And both of, as people just saw, McAfee and A.J. Hawk's reactions were pretty priceless. Mr. Pfizer, Aaron Rodgers has, in appearances on Rogan's show and McAfee's show, basically come out as a vaccine skeptic. He's kind of railed against woke culture. What did you make of this clip, Ryan?
Just clout chasing Travis now that Travis is like the second most famous person in the world, right? I mean, that's what this is at this point.
You think he wants Taylor Swift?
I mean, I think he wants some of the attention probably. It's funny how the NFL thought it was a big deal, and then Travis Kelce started dating Taylor Swift, and they realized what an actual big deal looks like. Because Travis Kelce, maybe the best tight end in like football history, and but to the Swifties, like, who is this? Who's this nobody taking our Taylor?
There was an amazing post from somebody at a Chiefs tailgate who was wearing a Travis Kelce jersey. It was like a girl, and it was spelled Kelce, like the girl's name, Kelce. The jersey was on the back because clearly they've never heard of Travis Kelce. Don't know much about the guy, but they love him.
The only thing I really have to add to this conversation is that if people haven't seen it, they should Google his younger brother, Jason Kelce's his Super Bowl speech that he gave in Philadelphia in 2018.
That's right.
Jason Kelce, by the way, possibly the greatest center in football history.
Did you watch the HBO documentary?
No.
You'd really like it. There's a lot of good Philly stuff, too.
Got it.
I forget that you're an Eagles fan. So you must really like Jason Kelce.
Oh yeah, it's an incredible speech. You would just go Google Jason Kelce speech, and that'll send you. If it sends you down a Jason Kelce or a Kelce Brothers rabbit hole, it'll be time better spent than some of the other Aaron Rodgers rabbit holes that you could probably end up going down.
So Aaron Rodgers is a really interesting figure because when he was Brett Favre's backup, and Favre was clearly on the way out and actually ended up in a really similar situation to Aaron Rodgers towards the end of his career with the Packers, Rodgers is somebody who has always taken himself so seriously. He was famously kind of jilted in the draft, wanted to play for the Niners, and didn't get drafted in that spot, ended up falling in the draft, becomes this wonderful, fantastic quarterback, but he always has taken himself so seriously, except for maybe like the Smoke and Jay memes. Do you remember that with Jay Cutler back in the day? Those were pretty good. And was really sort of well-liked. And then towards the end of his career with the Packers, starts getting what I think a lot of fans see as an attitude. And that is working at the same time as he starts also railing against woke culture, not taking himself that seriously, going on McAfee's show and going on Rogan and all this other stuff. And it is just fascinating to me how he's we've talked about this, the hippie to QAnon pipeline. And I'm not saying that Aaron Rodgers is QAnon, and I'm not saying, there's nothing about that. But there is the crunchy type of people, surfer type of guy who's now actually aligning with the right. And then you have some of these more soccer moms who are aligning more with the surfer type hippies on this question of medical freedom and vaccines. And listen, people have very legitimate questions. But we're not weighing in on vaccines here. It's just an interesting confluence.
And I think people that self-identify as free thinkers, and I think it's important to understand that phrasing and that framing, used to position themselves on the left, and today
Yes.
people who self-identify as free thinkers position themselves or find themselves positioned on the right. Now, I also think that people who self-identify as free thinkers often are a little bit obnoxious and not as free thinking as they think they are. People overrate their own intellectual agency and ought to have some more humility about how free thinking they actually are. Because if you call yourself a free thinker but then you agree with a particular person on everything,
Yeah.
you should ask yourself freely, how freely did you arrive at that conclusion?
Right. Right.
Yes, the hippie to QAnon pipeline is a real thing. Like we've seen it move, but I don't think it's as simple as people want to make it out to be. And I would encourage people to think more freely about that.
Yeah, and I don't think it's not specific to vaccines, and the hippie to QAnon pipeline isn't specific to Aaron Rodgers, obviously, but what we're talking about basically is the kind of Venn diagram between like conservative soccer moms and hippies, where there's this middle ground now where you have, maybe like people like Aaron Rodgers coming down on the same side on particular questions like woke culture and vaccines. And that's where, like, RFK Jr. launching what appears to be a third-party bid on Monday. I bet Aaron Rodgers supports RFK Jr.
Oh, no question.
Yeah, this is a real. There's a real constituency for this, and that doesn't mean everyone's going to do it responsibly. But I do think there are some responsible conversations that can be had, because when you again relegate people to the fringes of society, who are otherwise like intelligent, normal people, you make those, you allow bad ideas to kind of metastasize in the shadows instead of just like ESPN should be happy, seriously, because you should be able to have these questions in broad daylight, which is how we used to do, so that people can then smack it down. Jenny McCarthy starts saying weird stuff on The View. Great, like the American public and everyone else will weigh in and be like, yeah no, like this isn't right.
And before people think I'm being too critical of self-identified free thinkers, self-identified people who quote unquote follow the science are also obnoxious and are also
so
very rarely following the science. So just want to be equal opportunity here.
Yeah, that's fair. Criticizing the self-identified free thinkers from a hardcore Fish fan is a real bold move.
Right, and everyone at the Fish show thinks they're like, breaking from the monoculture, and they all look the same there. So like, let's just be humble about it. That's all I'm saying.
There you go. All right, well, we'll see you guys later. Hey, if you liked that video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to Breaking Points.
If you want to see the rest of Counterpoints, go to breakingpoints.com to become a premium member and get the full uncut show every morning in your inbox and on Spotify.
Help us build independent news and get the full show every morning at breakingpoints.com.